We're very honoured to have today an esteemed panel to discuss the power of communities in recognition of the Hygiene Bank's National Hygiene Week. I am very proud to be a trustee of the Hygiene Bank. If I was going to form a charity, this would exactly be it, because this issue exists in every part of our communities all over our country. Today, we want to discuss the importance of working within your communities to drive awareness about the important issues like hygiene poverty. The key points we want to cover are the prevalence of hygiene poverty in schools and ways by which leaders are looking to solutions to alleviate the problem. Secondly, how communities are coming together to make a difference. And finally, how volunteers quietly contribute to local communities. I would like each of my panelists to introduce themselves to you, and I'd like to start with Serena, please.
Hi, I joined the Hygiene Bank in 2019 in the May, after the Doncaster branch was set up in the January. I first found out about Hygiene Bank actually via Instagram, because one of my friends had set up a drop-off point at her office. So I contacted Lizzie, the founder, and immediately got involved the same day. In my personal life and work life, I am a mother to a 17-year-old and a financial planner. So those three things together, mother, volunteer and business owner, don't really allow for much else. So there is nothing much more exciting to say about me.
Thank you, Serena. Majid?
Hi, my name's Majid Ditta, and I'm the principal of Tauheedul Islam Boys High School, which is located in Blackburn, which is in the northwest of England. I work for an academy trust where we have 30 schools, and I am part of a network of head teachers who are benefiting greatly from the Hygiene Bank to be able to really support our families who are related to our school and beyond within the communities. And as Serena had mentioned her personal life, I am married, I have 4 children, and I have a passion to go hiking and walking every weekend. And I'm very close to the Lake District, and I'm trying to do the Wainwright 200 plus peaks. I don't know when I'll get there, but in some real time soon by the time I retire.
Amazing. Thank you, Maj. Charmaine?
Bins Mohammed. I'm a development worker for the Vine Community Centre, and I had the privilege of taking over the Hygiene Bank for Nottingham in September 2020. I work with lots and lots of organisations delivering it. I'm also an advocate for the cancer BME groups, so I do that part-time. I'm also a grandmother of 10, so I'm really, really busy at the weekends. And I do running. I've just completed the Maggie's run and raised £610. So I'm pretty busy volunteering.
Amazing. 10. Wow. I mean, you look amazing for it. So all hygiene poverty is a hidden crisis. We know this as we've just sent out a survey and received 2,000 responses, 50% of whom were unaware about hygiene poverty being an issue that individuals and families face in the UK. We know hygiene poverty goes far beyond not being able to afford period products. It's not being able to afford a toothbrush for everyone to have their own, have clean clothes, bodies, hair, washing up liquid, all those sorts of things. So can each of you sort of tell me how you identified hygiene poverty in your local community? Charmaine, can we start with you, please?
Yeah, I think it really came up, especially with the lockdown. I think we was one of the partners, but when we took over being in the Hygiene Bank coordinating it in Nottingham, we found working closely with the food bank, we identified the poverty there, because really we were just doing things around food, but it came to highlight that the hygiene was one of the top things that people kind of missed out. Their food would come first and then hygiene would be second, or not even second, it would just be out the window. So that's how we identified it. So I went around working with, looking for groups like refugee groups, mothers groups, baby groups, homeless groups, and just went round talking to the coordinators, and we were able to sort of identify it in that route.
It's a really interesting point you make. So it's kind of like hygiene poverty is a step before people go to food poverty, right? Because food's the last thing people give up, and hygiene's the thing they give up before that. So that, I think that's a critical point to make. Majid?
Just following on from Charmaine, absolutely. I would probably just throw in a little bit about keeping warm and the rent and the heat, which is also going to be a contributing factor when it comes to the chain of kind of poverty indicators. So you would eat before you would possibly keep your house warm, so to speak. And so there is a little bit of energy efficiency and the state of the household, which is also a consideration. We run a food bank, and so therefore we were very aware that for families who are stepping forward and wanting to be reached out when it came to food, that there would be also a need for self-care and hygiene. And as a school, we were trying to move away from any stigma which came with it. We didn't want people to judge if you weren't washing regularly, if your clothes weren't smelling the most fresh. And it was moving away from an attitudinal kind of perspective of being described as being dirty, grimy, scruffy, and, you know, trying to get the same level of sympathy being offered to hygiene poverty, to food poverty. You know, when you get the tilted head from an individual saying, "Oh, are you hungry?" As a school, we wanted to work with our families to say, it is fine to come across as the way you are. We are here to support you. And it was trying to move away from any judgment calls when it came to having any level of hygiene poverty. And so as a school, we used our input from the food bank as the leverage point to be able to identify hygiene poverty. And we haven't come across a single case to say someone who is identified as needing some support with food does not need hygiene support in some way, shape or form. And both of them work hand in hand, and in fact have really shaped the way that we are thinking, that to be able to help the whole individual and help with self-esteem. And as a school, we work with young people where image is so important. From a media perspective, it is not only about what you put into your body, it's also about how we can support you to look the best, and also what we put into your body. Thank you.
Thank you. Serena?
We were aware that hygiene poverty was a thing, obviously, because we'd looked into the hygiene bank before we both joined. Joe, the founder of the Doncaster branch, and then myself. And I had already been setting up with a local school and other community groups over a period of time with personal items, because I had already realised that that was an issue certainly within schools. What I hadn't realised was, until I joined the hygiene bank, was quite the level of hygiene poverty in the town. We knew, I think the figure quoted at the time was 34% of children in Doncaster were living in poverty. That was obviously below a certain level. But what we started to realise as our project grew was how much people went without hygiene products well before the food situation, because they will keep gas on, as Majid absolutely says, they will keep the electricity on, they will feed themselves, and way before that, the cleanliness stops. Firstly, I believe the home cleanliness stops because that's least obvious, and then personal hygiene. So we started approaching schools and food banks originally, so this is 2.5 years ago, explaining what we did. Some of them embraced it really quickly. Others just weren't really that enamoured to start with. Food was their priority, but actually now that's totally changed. And I think very much they're seen as going hand in hand, because if you have one, you can then afford the other more. So depending on whatever the need is, whether it's hygiene products for personal use, cleaning products or food, they work together. And especially now with the pandemic, I think it's just brought it all to the forefront.
I mean, absolutely amazing, each of your perspectives. All of them are roads that lead to the same path, aren't they? You can see these sets of indicators coming up to say this is what's lying at the end of that path. So Serena, continuing the conversation with you, your project was set up at the same time as the flooding happened in Doncaster in 2019. What are some of the parallels you have seen in your community in terms of responding to crises like the flooding and the pandemic? What are some of the key lessons you can share from supporting communities during a major event that can easily pull people in poverty? And have you seen people who needed help jump to help others as well, please?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Doncaster is my main focal point for this, but I have no doubt this happens across the country. But if we use this one as an example, we've been running for a few months before the floods happened. So fortunately, we had a bit of a foothold in quite a lot of the affected areas. The difficulty was a lot of the people who were affected by the floods at that point had been affected by the floods previously. So already not insured, or some of them were still living in caravans from the time before, temporary caravans. And it was getting to the stage where we were genuinely hearing about families in the caravans washing in a bowl of water for the whole family with some washing up liquid. Then what happened was we were very lucky in that a company offered us a load of cleaning products. And at the time, the Hygiene Bank didn't really offer cleaning products. We were quite a new concept at that stage. And it was personal hygiene in the main. So we spoke to head office and they obviously gave us the all clear that that was fine. And what came from the floods was how much we realised that cleaning products were an absolute necessity in every household we deal with, whether or not they were affected by the floods. So that changed our model as a project from the very first day to involve hygiene and cleaning products together. The local communities work together in a way that you almost can't describe. The level of care from people who were probably flooded themselves, the majority, was off the scale. People were cooking for each other, they were lending vehicles, they were paying for other people's skips, and all the community groups all came together. So, as an example, in one of the flooded villages, you would have the schools, the food bank, the church, the family hub, etc., all working together to provide for the needs of the families as a whole, rather than just, well, we're a school, we'll just look after children. It wasn't. People worked together, and I think that stayed there ever since. So actually, I think Doncaster was very well placed for the start of the pandemic because a lot of the care system was in place and the community groups all very much worked together here. I know from other volunteers that sometimes that doesn't happen, but the difference it makes to a town is astronomical because everybody talks. So if you have, for example, one food bank who suddenly has a huge amount of pasta from a company, what they then do is contact all the other food banks and offer it elsewhere. The same with grant funding, they all help each other. And that's happened right the way through. I would say the thing that we learned from the floods, Joe and I to start with, and our other volunteers now, is that collating information about what everybody needs rather than just throwing what you think is needed is very important. Getting exact numbers is very important, and making sure that we don't overlap. That was a mistake we made originally quite a bit. So we would get requests from all our community partners, but then when you started speaking to them, they would say, oh, actually, we could cover that area. So by us all working together, we're making sure there's no overlap to make sure it's more efficient and that more people are looked after. So as an example, I actually worked out these figures last night. From January to March this year, we collated quite a lot of information and we managed to support over 10,500 recipients.
Wow.
Yeah. And that is very much a split. So in household terms, 2,900 of those households have children and 1,300 don't have children. So we see that the sway is more towards households with children, with poverty, which of course makes perfect sense. But we collate all the information in for everybody's numbers. And then when items are distributed, so we understand, so we're giving the right things to the right people.
It's just unbelievable. And I think it's heartbreaking, but the heartwarming part of it is that the sense of community still exists, right? Which is the thing that people worry about, is that we're losing that. So that's really heartwarming. Thank you so much, Serena. Majid, over to you now, sir. So your school centres around leading academic performance, community service and moral values. When we spoke, you rightly said everyone has a right to feel clean and that your academic performance will get you through the door. But if you don't look good, you won't feel good. Can you tell us more about how your students, how you instill these values in your students, not only about them, but also about your wider community, please?
As I said, that I'm the principal of a school in which there are 30 schools. We are known as the STAR Trust. And the STAR is based on 4 values of service, teamwork, ambition and respect. So those 4 core values are instilled in every level of stakeholder who is involved in our school, from the teachers through to the governors, through to the parents, and then our young men and women who attend our schools. And within the STAR values, we expect certain types of behaviours. So as part of the respect, for example, strand, we want the students who attend our schools to be non-judgmental, to reach out, to be caring, to appreciate the goodness which is in their lives whilst having a bearing. Look at the person beneath you rather than the person above you, so you don't have this culture of, oh, it's not fair, but rather you say, I show great gratitude for what I have, and with whatever little or with however much I've got, I still have enough to be able to reach out and share and care towards others. We also have a school where the specialism is leadership, and within leadership we have 3 pointers, 3 virtues. They are performance, civic and moral. And for example, within civic, there is one of the competencies which reads out very loudly that I need to know and care and share with my local community. So the backdrop to which the school is attached to also fundamentally allows for this vibrant culture of caring, of being appreciative, of reaching out as part of the DNA of our school. And with my specific school, we are a Muslim faith-based school, and we have what we call the 3 eyes of the faith charter, which are transferable to people of all faiths and no faith. And one of them is going the extra mile. Ihsan is going the extra mile. So what does that look like? It can be in the classroom. It can be by giving beyond your personal best and trying hard in everything you do. But it could be just as simple as going to your neighbour's house and asking them if they have everything and anything they need, or if there is anything that you can offer by way of minimal service. And we try and encapsulate it all in what we call the STAR Diploma. And the STAR Diploma is an achievement which we recognise in the STAR schools as going beyond the call of duty. It's not the game which many of the young boys and girls like playing on PlayStation. It's going beyond the call of duty to be able to say, what have I done to be able to make a difference to the world around me, my community around me, without any personal gain other than an altruistic gratification. When it came to the whole concept around the food hygiene and about wanting the personal best, yes, you alluded to, Rahul, that good academia, and we are a trust who celebrates phenomenal results because we have a mantra that social mobility is through education. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what profile of family you have. It doesn't matter what you attach yourself as having a label. Once you come in through the front door, there is no ceiling. There isn't no mountain high enough which we won't move for you, and we will try and aspire to get you to those places. And so the academics will get you to the door, but we needed to get our young people through the door. And so if you just put it in hand, for someone to achieve their personal best, they've got to feel good about themselves. They've got to have this real strong self-image, this positive self-esteem, this positive identity, being proud of who they are and where they belong. And so we were trying to remove some of the grunts and their barriers to be able to say, no, you're putting a ceiling on yourself because of the way you look. You're putting a ceiling on yourself because of the way you are feeling about yourself. So we knew that we were going to hit a ceiling with academia because a person was already shying away from reaching their full potential because of their self-made ceilings. And so we have, I finish with one or two kind of mantras, and that is, it is dignity rather than degrading. It is sympathy rather than sarcasm, and is joint thinking rather than judgmental. And that's what we are trying to use as our everyday kind of backbones to be able to say we will remove any kind of realistic barrier. And I just conclude by saying we haven't stopped there. We know that once we've addressed the food, once we've addressed the hygiene, our young people coming from these most vulnerable families have still got to make massive leaps to be able to access a world which they should so rightly deserve. And I just use things like codes and polish and etiquette, you know, how to use their P's and their T's and their manners, you know, which will truly get them through that door I'm talking about when they go to interview.
Amazing, Majid. Really heartwarming and inspiring. Thank you. Over to you, Charmaine, now. You work both as a volunteer and a community partner representative, works directly with recipients of our hygiene donations, as well as having 10 grandchildren, which I still can't get over. Can you tell us about the impact you've seen firsthand for those who've received hygiene products they may otherwise go without? And what kind of transformation have you witnessed, Charmaine? Thank you.
So I think what's come out of this, I mean, this thing was there before COVID, you know,
Yeah.
and all this has done is exposed it. It's just opened it up, because I wasn't aware of it at all until, you know, I just went into the hygiene bank and thought, okay, this is really good. But then when we went deeper into it, you see how it's affecting people's mental health. It affects them going out. It affects families. It affects relationships, you know, because the person who has got that, you know, stigma of, you know, not clean or smell, they then tend to go within themselves, and it affects mental health. So I've got like two case studies that I can bring to the forum. Is that
Please.
Yeah. So one of them was a young guy. He's 23 years old, white British, and he was homeless, and he had very little money. He wasn't on any benefits, and he suffered with severe mental health issues. So he didn't have a secure place to rest his head, and found himself not keeping up with his personal hygiene. So when he came to the project, we were able to provide him with various grooming and washing, you know, things. And we've seen a vast improvement in him, his confidence, his well-being, and to the point where now he's volunteering, which is really good.
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
And so that he can then now talk about the mental health and things, what put him in the position that he was. So he's opened up a bit more, and then he can help younger people. So that's really good. And then another one was from a Black British girl. She came to the housing project, and she was sleeping rough on people's sofas. And one thing about the hygiene products, which I found, it wasn't catering for cultural, you know, needs, black hair and you know, BME groups. So we were able to get some products to her, and especially with the sanitary pads and stuff like that. You know, that is one thing that I don't really want to go into it, because sometimes it's a bit personal to women what we have to do with our pads. But yeah, some of them were just using them more than they should have been, and maybe just doing things that they, you know, shouldn't really be doing, but they were doing because they had no choice. So we've come along and just given them, you know, the pads, and identified that gap. And, you know, again, she's become a volunteer, which is lovely. And yeah, and it's all about the mental health part of it, that just going within yourself and not talking to people. Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because we think about the state of poverty as just like a state of existence. We don't think about kind of the impacts that it has on you physically, mentally, your community, your relationships, everything. And I think you really nailed that. And what's really heartwarming is the young man you spoke of, who's realized, been on that journey and wants to give back. And that's just amazing. It just, again, it's heartwarming. So what we'd like to do now is to get each of you to ask one of your fellow panelists a question. Serena, can we start with you, please? I believe you have a question for Majid.
I do indeed, as I'm a big fan of what he does. My question, Majid, please, is obviously what you're achieving within your school and bringing not just to the school but to the wider community by using the communities themselves and ex-students is really quite inspiring, as I've said to you before. But do you have any plans to share your guidance as almost a blueprint so that other schools could follow in these footsteps using your processes? And also to include, I know it works very well with your particular faith school, but I know you've just said there that you also would be able to use this in non-faith schools and other faith schools. Do you have any plans to share your guidance and make it a blueprint for the country, please?
Thank you for your kind words, Serena, and thank you for being a fan. Maybe in the world I've got one fan at least. But really being part of this forum, this panel, that's when it really dawned and highlighted to me that what we are doing as a school may or may not be translated in other schools. And primarily what we are doing is just trying to really, when we say our vision is nurturing today's young people, inspiring tomorrow's leaders, what is the term nurturing? And part of poverty, hygiene, and everything else which comes with it, for me, it's part of that nurturing program. So yes, we do have the alumni coming back to do the food bank on a Friday because they've now passed their driving test, having left 3 years ago. Yes, we do have teachers who and other families who are doing some washing of uniforms and pressing and ironing to make sure that our young people come back so that they feel really good about themselves on a daily basis, so that we can remove any kind of barriers in their life to achieve that maximum success. And so these are universal. They are not faith restricted. They are not culturally indiscriminate. You know, if you are facing some sort of poverty, it is translated across every community across every faith. And so it's the generic skills of just wanting to go above the call of duty or do what is right to be able to remove that. So absolutely what is going on in our school can be translated. And within the STAR, we have a combination of faith-based free schools, but we have academy converters who have no faith identity or have a differing faith identity to the Islamic faith. But it's just about trying to get the best out of the young people who are within your school environment. Since speaking to panel members previously, there seems to be an opportunity to share good practice, and I am very much aware that I'm probably a million miles away from trying to unlock the true potential for the young people. And so I think there will be masses of excellent practice going on up and down the country in differing forms, all wanting to do the best for their young people who are attending their schools or within their community. And so I would be more than willing to be able to capture anything I am doing to form part of what wouldn't be recognised as the ideal practice, but part of a combined effort with many other excellent practitioners up and down the country, sharing what works for them. So it is a resource which can be used to say that actually signposts me or gives me a moment of inspiration to be able to go and say that in my school, in my organisation, and it's not only specific to schools, it could be youth clubs, it could be beyond, to say we can use this idea to be able to make the opportunities and life chances of any person who we are serving that little bit more kind of positive. So absolutely willing to share, willing to contribute, but by no means want this to be seen as I've got it right and this is the way you do it. No, part of I am willing to learn and find out how I can continue to move myself and my team on to improve the life chances of our young people who attend the school and beyond. Thank you.
Amazing. Serena, any comments?
I think you're underselling yourself, but you're right. We deal with a lot of schools here, and the amount of people that go above and beyond is quite formidable. But I do think working together to share those practices would be fabulous.
Thank you. Majid, I believe you have a question for Charmaine, so over to you, sir.
Hi, Charmaine. Do you think that a more coordinated approach with forensic and streamlined intelligence from different stakeholders, for example, schools, health professionals would benefit in targeting families more accurately and with more ease, sensitivity and speed. I'm sorry, there's another question coming. So that's part A. And part B is specific to your locality. How is the Nottingham Food Bank currently working within a multi-stakeholder engagement environment when dealing with a team around a family?
The first one, yes, and then no. So the first one, I was invited. I'm going to just because I got this question this morning. So I was invited back in February as part of a research on investigating frontline community-based organisations and their connection with food poverty. Yeah. Fair Share Midlands were the partners, and the aims were to identify organisations, how they can better support and understand the interactions with the local community. So we now form a part of a network, not-for-profit network where we have social eating places going around. I also sit on a forum now where it's there's a welfare rights and food poverty forum, and I'm chair of that. And that started last month. We have our first meeting on the 29th. So we're going to target all the issues that have raised up and see how we can work together in partnerships with the City Council, Fair Share and all the community hygiene banks. I think a really star hygiene bank we have here is HIMA. HIMA's been able to set up a people's, it's called the Nottingham People's Food Pantry, which is really good. And what it is, it's for people experiencing poverty, any kind of poverty, work poverty, food poverty. And it's discounted food. And the hall is open to anyone receiving benefits or on low income or struggling just to make ends meet. It's set up for appointment only, and they can contact on phone or email. And also they've launched the click and collect. So that stigma of being on low income, you know, they kind of highlighted that people can just click and collect or have it delivered. So it's like, you know, you could be a Sainsbury's account, or you don't know where it's coming from, and the bags are they've got different names on it. It's not like you know, a food poverty bag. So people feel comfortable in ordering, and it's a bit to keep families afloat and help them prevent money issues becoming worse over time. And what we did highlight was the cultural food as well. That's, you know, so I'm all for everyone having food and about food poverty, but it's about having the right food, because, you know, you can give food to people, but if they're not going to eat it, then you're not going to tick the boxes, are you? Yeah. So yeah, I hope that helps, Majid.
Amazing. Majid, any comments, sir?
It was just very powerful. Thank you, Charmaine, to hear some of the wonderful work and how working together we can really make inroads, and you know, how different partner organisations with a common mindset will probably go a lot further, a lot quicker. And so it was very reassuring to hear that that is already happening in and around communities which we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Charmaine, thank you for that. It's wonderful. And I believe you have a question for Serena.
I do have a question. Serena, what processes did you use in recruiting volunteers, and how do you manage and keep them motivated?
We've got 10 volunteers at the minute. We've lost a couple over COVID due to family circumstances, health and things, but we've been very lucky with people desperate to help in the area. So we have 10 who are official volunteers, but we also have a lot of people in the area who want to help by doing other things but can't commit to being a volunteer. And as you absolutely rightly say, the majority of those people have been recipients of food poverty, hygiene poverty, etc., support in the past and want to give back. We see that a lot. So I totally agree with you on that one. I had a look out of our 10 volunteers last night thinking about this, and we've actually recruited them from 7 different places. So we don't seem to have one process. Social media has been the main one. Certainly local Facebook groups. 4 of our 10 volunteers are in my local vicinity because I put a request out on my local Facebook group. We've also had support from someone who saw the Faye Ripley interview last year. That was last Hygiene Week, I think, wasn't it? And when I did a Radio Sheffield interview, again for National Hygiene Week. So it's a mix of us actually saying, please, can you come and help us, and responding, or them just hearing what we do and thinking, yes, that is exactly what I want to get on board with. And that's a really lovely mix. Now, we're a really busy project. As you know, we look after over 40, close to 45 community partners. So nobody's ever going to be bored being a volunteer here. But we try and keep everyone involved to the level that they want to be, because it can be very all-consuming. And when you're a volunteer, you might think you're signing up for an hour or two, but if suddenly it's a huge amount is placed on you, you may not be able to sustain that. So we try really hard to find out exactly what people want to do. So for me, because of my family situation, I am much better doing anything paperwork that I can slip in between meetings or late at night. We have other volunteers who want to do it purely the social side of it. You know, they want to be in with the CPs, they want to be physically distributing. That's what they prefer doing. So we try and adapt to what people wish. Likewise, if people have health issues, so at the moment, one of our volunteers has got a broken hip that she's had since Christmas, not very well, but she's bored witless at home. And so we literally give her bags to sort on her knee. So it still keeps her involved, but obviously just within what she can do, which means, to be honest, anybody can volunteer, no matter what their circumstance, because whether it's ringing around schools saying, do you need things, or whether it's sorting products physically or loading cars, it can be adapted. And we also have a WhatsApp group where it keeps everybody involved, because there are weeks where people can't help, but they still like to keep an eye on what's going on and feel part of a team, because I think that team spirit is really important in volunteering for us all, because you hear stories and it just reminds you why you're doing this all the time. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it really does, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Any comments, Charmaine?
Yeah, I just think it's wonderful. I just need to team up with Serena so that I can take some of her good bits out of there, yeah, and use them. That's really good.
Well, I think each of you are rock stars, and together we've got a super group, haven't we? So it's pretty amazing. So I'd like to basically ask each of you, what is the one thing you would like people to do to tackle hygiene poverty in their communities? Start with you, Charmaine, please, this time.
I like people to talk about it. Don't think it as a dirty word, you know? I think the more we talk, the more people are amazed of what we do and what it accomplishes. I've had so many businesses not even know about it and wanting to give, you know, so I think it's about talking about it and spreading the word and making it not a dirty word.
Do you think part of the reason people don't talk about it is because they're not aware of it, or they don't know what label goes on this issue? They just think poverty, they think food insecurity, but they don't know about hygiene poverty.
I think it's a bit of everything there, what you've said, because when people speak about poverty, they more think about money. It's we haven't got any money, and then that's, well, if you haven't got any money, you haven't got any food, and you can't eat. They don't kind of put it to hygiene. That they don't put it with that. So I think it's about an education process that we need to educate people and make them aware of what we're doing and what it means. Yeah. Thank you,
Serena.
Yeah, I think it depends when we're talking about tackling it. It depends how deep we're trying to go with that. Are we trying to tackle the root cause, therefore, to try and stop it? Because, of course, in the ideal world, we wouldn't exist and we wouldn't be needed. So I think it's whether we're talking at that level, in which case it's trying to change processes, writing to MPs, you know, fighting for change, which everybody can be doing by making this so public, or is it more of a practical level where we would say, please add one item of hygiene or cleaning product to your shopping when you donate to the food bank every time? It's both ends of the spectrum, because by just donating, we're not actually solving the problem. We're finding a sticking plaster at that point, which can get people through a difficult time. But we also need, as a nation, to really be looking into why this is happening and making a lot of noise about it. Because I do think very much that once people are aware of it, they become very passionate about the subject. Exactly. I think it hits everybody like a sledgehammer. And then once they know about it, they really don't stop thinking about it. And I see that a lot across the board.
Thank you. Majid?
For me to try and tackle hygiene poverty, it's all linked into one idea, but you may think I'm trying to sneak in 2 or 3 points here. But
Go for it.
it's all about trying to have a non-negotiable sort of graduated hierarchical list of basic hygiene needs, which should be universally accessible to all. So what is considered to be a luxury item to what is considered to be a mundane, everyday, non-negotiable item. And so if we are able to very clearly articulate what is the non-negotiable basic humanitarian need from a hygiene perspective, then we should never try to fall below on that every momentous impetus kind of targeted approach for any donations, are really focusing on what is not considered to be a luxury item, which may link to poverty hygiene, but hygiene poverty, but is really trying to plug a gap of a basic need. And so it's almost like saying a toothbrush, toothpaste comes before having some sort of nice fragrant laundry kind of throw in. Sorry, the terminology's gone. You can see how much I do the laundry, but to make your garments smell nice and fresh. So it's about making sure that the families get really what they really truly need, and then linking that to the non-negotiable items would be this uncompromising kind of mindset to say anybody who is accessing the food bank is in need of some hygiene products, because for them to be accessing the food bank, they've already transitioned through the hygiene poverty gap. And so your donations, which are given to you, will have a combination of food products and your sustenance from your physical well-being, your eating well-being point of view, but you're also getting some non-negotiable basic poverty hygiene products to get you to be where you need to be, so that you can continue to try and be the best you can. Amazing.
Really, really amazing. Inspirational. What I wanted to do now is to basically, I wanted to ask each of you, when you think about hygiene poverty, what's the one thing you think, if you had to make a shout out to everyone in the UK, that you would ask for them to do to either raise awareness of this, to help deal with the issue, or to talk about it, to create partnerships? Everything that we've sort of talked about, what's the one thing that you would say, guys, this is my ask to you?
Raise the awareness. I think that is raise the awareness. I think once we raise the awareness, we then can have a dialogue. And once we have a dialogue, then it starts spilling over, that we can put policies in place. And that's what we've got to reach for, to put policies in place that this doesn't happen across the board.
How do I know it sounds like an obvious question, but how do we raise awareness of this? Because I think we've all talked about hygiene poverty is part of the journey to food poverty, which is then the journey to complete destitution, right? So how do we make people aware of this? Because even me, I was not aware of hygiene poverty. And when it was put into context to me, like, listen, people give up hygiene poverty before they give up food, and then when they give up food, they've lost everything. So how do we do that? Do we campaign? Do we tell stories about people who've been on this journey? How do we do that? Or what's some of the ideas you've got?
I think we've been campaigning for a long time, and we have the hygiene week once a week, once a year. I think it needs to be more than that. I think it needs to go further into the media, the social media. It needs to be embedded, on billboards. So I think it needs to go to government. That's what I think. It just, needs to go to government.
Okay, fantastic. Serena?
Yeah, I'm with Charmaine on that. I think we've seen the success of this when we saw the free school meals, big discussions out there, and we've seen the free period products discussions. Period products can be an uncomfortable discussion in some families. I mean, we see it ourselves with our elderly gentlemen in the food banks, perhaps. When we first started, you could see them just being so uncomfortable collecting the products, and they put them in the back of the van. And now I'll get a call saying, have you got this size? They don't care. It didn't take long to make it a normal discussion. And quite truthfully now, I don't see that. And that's only been a couple of years. So if people are suddenly talking about the uncomfortable side of this, people smelling, it's uncomfortable. People having head lice, it's uncomfortable. It's not nice topics of conversation. The minute you start having this as a regular discussion on social media, on documentaries, as we saw with period products and free school meals, people talking about children not being able to afford food in the holidays made people uncomfortable. They did not want to talk about it. It got out there and there was a lot of noise. Now it is accepted that this is really what happens. And I think we have to be doing the same on an ongoing banging of our drum.
Amazing. Thank you. I mean, isn't it ironic, Serena? Like, the more we talk about it, we realize how big the issue is, right? The more that people get comfortable, you're like, that's me. And they can identify that they actually have the issue. And then they can say, well, so is my friend, so is my family, so is my colleague, so is my kids' friends and everything. And the irony of this all is that the more we talk about, the more we realize how big the issue is, right? It compounds itself, really. So,
and I also believe that a lot of children, we know children can be quite cruel, not always deliberately, but they may not realize why the child sitting next to them has body odor. If suddenly they start to become aware that it might be because of this, and this, the kindness seeps in. Then suddenly the child, as Charmaine said before, is back into the fold, which then means more joint events, perhaps more meals at other people's houses, all of these things, which then prevents such high levels of depression, which then allows, as Majid said, them to go forward with work. It's all linked, but it stems right, in my opinion, this stems right from the very, very lowest school age. And we must instill it at that age, that people understand, and they will teach their parents because it happens already.
So it's that empathy. It's sort of understanding that your fellow human being may be in a different situation and it's not their fault and we can do something about it together, which plays perfectly into me asking Majid his thoughts on this.
Absolutely concur with Charmaine and Serena with regards to awareness. For me, I put a little bit of a different slant and twist on the interpretation, and that was more of act now, we are one kind of strategy. So where does it stop? We know that grooming, self-care, image, how are we opening opportunities for families who may be experiencing hygiene poverty in and around the areas which they live? We have got endless sports and leisure facilities with showering facilities, but they are for paid members of the communities. Where is the joint up thinking to be able to say there is no shame in showering here as long as you go out feeling good? Where is that hairdresser who's able to say, you come as part of my moral and social imperative, you will get a complimentary grooming session. And so it's about being creative and working as one and acting now to be able to say you matter, your well-being matters, and we will try our best as a collective to make sure. So the education, the volunteers with the hygiene, the poverty kind of initiative, backed with volunteers who are coming in all sorts of different forms, could really hopefully change the landscape and opportunities. So if they are facing a barrier immediately in the walls, in their own four walls, there is an outlet provision. And it's not something which is always an intervention and a given, and you've got to put your hand out and you will receive. It's more of signposting and direction to be able to say, you can't have it in place A. Have you thought of place B and C? It's very close to your locality, And I guess I'm quite visionary when I talk about it. But if someone needs to get place A to place B, where is that taxi driver saying, I'm not going to charge you, just get there, So as I said, it's probably just the way I'm thinking. It's about saying probably the solutions are there, the opportunities are there. It's just that effort and that coordination to be able to say we really want to make it happen. And we are going to educate, but we are going to act now as one community to make it happen, because really we don't have any time to waste to be able to get these people set back any further than where they are at this moment in time. which may lead to a lifetime of mental health, distance from the community, and almost becoming isolated from a part of the community which we all live and serve.
It's amazing. The key, I mean, for me, one of the key words that's come out of this is community, community, community. And again, people are so down on the existence of community, but it's clear here that all of you believe in it, you are part of it, and it's certainly been something that's been a solution to try and deal with this issue. So it's huge. So I want to do a quick fire round. If I'm just going to shout out a few words and phrases, and just want to get your immediate reaction to those words and phrases. So I want to basically start out with defining hygiene poverty. So Serena, define hygiene poverty, please. It's hard, isn't it?
That should roll off my tongue. I would say hygiene poverty is where you have to think about whether you can afford to be clean, and whether that comes as a compromise to something else. So if you have to think, can I shower and wash my hair? But it may mean that I won't be able to eat later. Even the consideration, even if it ends up that you can do both at some point, that is still poverty, because you have to consider it, because the majority of people do not have to consider those basic functions.
Thank you. Charmaine?
I think from Serena, it's really good. I mean, it's maybe not even thinking about making a choice that you have to think about washing or not. You just can't wash, you know. So it's to define it would be like, I don't know. Majid said some words the other day, and I work with groups, and it was like, act now, we are one. Look at the latter, you matter. And it was just like, you know, if I work with young kids, it's about that. So it's, for me, hygiene is about having the right to be clean and not, and yeah, I don't know. It's Serena, I'm just like, I've never thought of it. I just do the work. And
Exactly. But it's so it's an ocean, isn't it? When you think about it, you jump in and there's so much to think about. So yeah.
To think about, because it's not just about the hygiene, it's where it starts from in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, it's the welfare part of it, that it's a knock-on effect.
Yeah. Majid?
For me, it's a little bit like what's been said before. It's being caught with the dilemma between heat and eat and rent and being clean. Fundamental, non-negotiable humanitarian rights which we should all enjoy. And so for me, the definition is when you have got to a stage in your life when you are having to compromise on your fundamental non-negotiables, especially in the time and the world we are living in. That why are we having to choose between one and the other when we can go for a holiday to the out of this world? And so it's very emotionally and upsetting to say that it's when the have-nots are having to really compromise on certain things which we consider as being fundamental, basic humanitarian rights.
Thank you. Throw a word at you, Serena. Dignity. What's your immediate response?
Shame.
Charmaine?
Same. Did you say same?
Shame.
Shame.
Oh, shame. I'm like,
Yeah.
Dignity.
Just like the word that comes to your mind when you think about dignity.
Self-worth.
Self-worth. Majid?
Fundamental right.
Fundamental right. Serena, social contract.
Oh, I like that one. Okay. Obligation within our communities.
Charmaine?
Policy.
Majid?
Opportunity.
Opportunity. Serena, innovation.
Funding.
Funding. Charmaine?
Finding new ways.
Finding new ways. Majid?
Creativity.
Creativity. Final round, Serena, necessity.
Basic needs.
Charmaine?
Human right.
Human rights. Majid?
Normality.
Normality. Before we go to our final round, I want to ask you, Majid, we're in our prep panel, you spoke about the work you do with washing machines and everything at the school. And I just thought in terms of innovation, creativity is just absolutely mind blowing. And I'd love you to spend a few minutes talking about that, please. So people are aware of kind of what you've done, with an issue and how you've dealt with it, and it's just mind-blowing to me. And I just think it's something that everyone should really think about who's in a similar role to you as a pillar of the community.
Thank you. If I may, I'll take a couple of minutes just to be able to capture. So obviously to be able to strive for the best for every young person, and social mobility through education being a mantra, we needed the young people to come to school every day. They needed to come on time, and they needed to feel good about themselves and being able to access their learning on a platform which is very equitable to somebody who comes to school with a fully nourished breakfast and a clean set of uniform to wear. And so we realized that some of our most vulnerable, who we needed to support more, not only with parental engagement, but also with trying to get them to aspire to achieve the best they could and have this level of self-belief, that part of the removal of their barriers was more than the academia, but looking at what fed into the academia, what was affecting their attendance, what could be affecting their behaviour, what could be affecting their the opportunities which are presented to them, and why they are saying, no, it's not for me. And rather than saying, yes, I want to secure some leadership skills, which come as a result of being a part of a group or an activity. And so we came down to the fact that the uniform, which was there to represent equality, was still signposting inequality. And for me, if anybody was to ask, why do you have a uniform? It was to say that everybody is neutral. Is trying to put insignificance between somebody who can afford the latest designer compared to somebody who is wearing their school shoes at home as part of their foot attire. But then there was an inequality around the state of the uniform and the kind of the smell which came from the uniform. So as a school, we tried to degrunt, and we have taken the opportunity to wash uniform for identified, and what we have also done to disguise the washing of uniform for targeted pupils who may be vulnerable to poverty hygiene is also to open the doors to really maximize family time, or a high work profile families where they don't have enough time in the day to do a laundry service for them. So there is a little bit of masking about why you are washing your uniform in school, to rather than, well, yes, your uniform's ready and your uniform's ready and your uniform's ready. And people are feeling this kind of, well, I'm not being singled out because of my circumstance, because I'm seeing somebody who is in a big flash car also accessing the service. And what we are seeing is the corridors smell nice, the attendance is great, and our behaviour. These are the indicators, Rahul, which I can only put my finger on to say that these are positive indicators. With a school full of boys who and it's a non-selective school, we don't have any fixed term exclusions, we don't have any permanent exclusions. We have happy young people who come to school knowing that we are trying our best for them, and we are getting more and more people on board to be able to now offer this laundry service, to be able to remove some of what is an absolute non-negotiable. And having spoken to one or two young people who have benefited from the service and were part of a targeted process for kind of hygiene poverty, it has changed their life to be able to translate some of their uniform cleanliness to their everyday cleanliness, to their bedsheet cleanliness. And so what has come with this is we've become fully aware that we should never take it for granted that some basic things are being performed in every household, and that every household has got some basic education about what is basic hygiene, you know. And we were very alarmed that for some, when we spoke to them, washing bed sheets every 6 months was a normality. And so for some who are washing their bed sheets every week, you know, it sounded like a different world. And so through this washing of uniform also then opened up a lot of other kind of scenarios, saying, goodness me, where is this world going to stop? To be able to say that this education about what is your basic right and what you deserve, and how can we empower you to know what are the non-negotiable basics to be able to say that on average, a standard person with, no matter what circumstance they're in, they should be exposing themselves to experience the washing of their bed linen at least X amount of times in a period of time. Now, I don't want to say that because I don't want to come across as being prescriptive or judgmental, but wrapped with the laundry service came this kind of, oh my goodness, we lack this basic education in some of our young people and their families about what is deemed to be acceptable. The one thing I finish with is what has been very mind-blowing, and I just want to share this with the panel, is that there is never a judgment on what is being offered by the families to their children, because some of the best, most supportive families are the ones who are going through poverty when it comes to hygiene. So I want to really dispel the myth that hygiene poverty is as a result of bad parenting. Hygiene poverty is because of displaced loyalties. I say no. Some of my best parents, some of my most supportive parents, some of my most aspirational parents, and I'm getting emotional talking about it, are the ones who themselves are wanting the best but just don't have the means to get there at this moment in time. Thank you.
Majid, thank you so much. It was so important to talk about what you're doing there, because we all walked away in tears when we did the prep panel. So I really want to get that across. So to finish, I'd like each of you to imagine you're sitting in the House of Commons. You've been invited to talk about hygiene poverty. You've got 30 seconds to make your pitch to all the MPs in the UK about this issue. What are your words of wisdom? Charmaine, can I start with you, please?
It's a basic human right that everyone should feel clean. It shouldn't be something that should be scorned at. They shouldn't feel embarrassed, and it shouldn't affect the mental health. I believe that everyone has this right, and we'd like you to put this through as a policy and in the government written words that everyone deserves this basic right.
Thank you so much. Serena?
I think I personally would plug for free essential hygiene and cleaning products as part of our benefit system. I think that should be part of it. They're talking about free period products for certain situations now. I think care packages should be readily available as part of the benefit system. It won't solve the problem, but it will get to the next stepping stone of movement, which, if it's a short-term issue, can very much change things.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Majid?
I would make a plea to say invest in our society, invest in our community to offer a non-negotiable basic human needs package. And that basic poverty, hygiene poverty, if it is plugged, it will possibly be a filter to many other wrongs and evils in our society, which will come with drug and substance misuse, which would come with health-related issues, and therefore get someone to feel good about themselves, the way they look about themselves, get them to be a positive contributor back into society. And so we can stop, I would make this plea that what comes later to poverty hygiene will probably be some of the local authority challenges they've got around health, housing, and a kind of substance misuse, because it's a slippery path to say, you didn't catch me when I was falling off this kind of feeling good about myself, so I became that worthless that it's now gone into, I don't really care about my body, I don't care about what I eat, I don't care about what exercise I take. In fact, I don't care what I am doing to my body, because this is just me.
Thank you so much. Each of you is such an inspiration. It's an honour to work with you. I'm honoured to be a trustee of the Hygiene Bank. Please check us out at thehygienebank.com. And thank you all so much for your time and your support and what you do for us as a community and us as a society. Thank you for joining us today. Though this panel has been free and non-ticketed, we'd love if you could donate and support our work at thehygienebank.com/donate. Thank you very much.